Hello, welcome to Before I Do, the show that covers what should be done before you get engaged or you choose to walk down the aisle and say, I do. The show that supports you if you want to be engaged, you are engaged, you're just dating, you're thinking about getting married, or, you're not really sure about getting married. This provides that relationship advice for you. And
so Before I Do is intended to be an interactive show. And so this is a call and response experience. So please be sure to put your comments and your questions in the chat. And we are so excited to have you all with us here this evening as we delve into the month of October. Yes, indeed. And so we have another on fire topic for you all that we will be discussing. And so we're actually talking about dating in particular. So we shared for a couple of weeks, obviously the toxic expectations when it comes to the love languages was very powerful. We talked about foundational families. What about your friends? But now we're going to get into the actual dating.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to get into what exactly it is when it comes to dating. But before we do that, we want to give a special shout out to a very special couple that we've had the chance to partner with over the past few weeks. Go ahead, hit the bell. Michael and Patience Penafleck. They actually got married today.
Yes, they walked down the aisle. Yes. They did the premarital counseling.
Yes, they did.
They called Couples Academy and they said, yes, we want our premarital counseling. They went through the process. And today, what's the day?
Absolutely. Today is your wedding day. Forever.
I thought you was going to start saying, she is your queen.
See, that's typical. That's typical.
Oh, that was too predictable.
That's too absolutely too predictable. But definitely want to say again, thank you to Michael and Patience for entrusting us to partner with you in your premarital process. Of course, we not only wish you well on the wedding, but definitely in your marriage. And once again, if you are engaged, please be sure to reach out to the Couples Academy so that we can take you through our premarital course, and so that you can make sure you have the strategies, the tools, and the foundation for not just your wedding, but your marriage.
That's right. Don't just plan for the wedding.
Plan for the marriage.
Plan for the marriage.
Hit the bell, please, on that. Yes, because a lot of people are planning for the wedding and not effectively planning for the marriage. But that's why we are here at the Couples Academy to walk with you in your premarital preparation. All right. But tonight we are actually talking about dating, and our topic tonight are dating do's and don'ts.
Dating do's and don'ts. And so, come on now, you have had an experience. So we will eventually, give the opportunity, right? For you all, but share. Don't wait on us. If you have a question, you have a dating situation scenario, it might be something that's current or something that happened, right? A what would you do moment. That's fine. We'll be asking you to weigh in. We want to hear. And our own daughter last week was on.
Yeah.
And
she did a great job too.
She did a great job. So we definitely appreciate our daughter, who again is 19. All right, will be 20 soon. And just hearing her experience about dating and things like that. So very insightful, and we hope to, add to your palette of dating do's and don'ts. So dating,
yes. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You got it.
So dating is pretty much one of the initial steps in revealing yourself to someone else. So in that experience, you open up to a person, you get to be vulnerable. It's a genuine process. It requires patience. And each date is a small gift to self. Right?
Yeah, that's how I always say. I'm one of those people, one of those men. I actually love dating. I really enjoy the idea and the whole, I'm a hopeless romantic. So the idea of taking a woman out, having a nice meal, conversation, potentially doing something that I hadn't done before. Why are you looking like that? I'm just sharing my experience in my life. But
okay, so I'm going to read this quote. Okay, so this is a quote by a gentleman named Grotto, right?
Okay. The Grotto that's actually
the article,
a publication.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to read this quote. It says, each date is a small gift to self. So share and receive that gift with humility and respect. However, everyone has their own way of going about dating. There is no universal dating rule book. but it may be beneficial to have some guidelines to help navigate your own romantic journey.
Absolutely.
It's a gift to self.
It is a gift. I mean, it's a gift when you
I
have
never
the
thought about
opportunity.
it that way.
No, it absolutely is. When someone again shares their time and space with you, when you have the opportunity to not only get to know someone, but also them getting to know you.
Okay.
One of the things that I know people who tell me that they date as older, like it wears them out. Like the whole idea of being older and having to introduce themselves to different people. But when you're younger, like when I was younger, I actually enjoyed the process of being able to meet someone and have a conversation, get to know like how they thought about certain things, and explore again if we were in a certain city, you know, just really being able to get to know them in a more personal private way.
I think dating I did not approach it that way. It was very uncomfortable. And yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, I have to eat in front of this person, like there, you know. And then there was just a lot of social awkwardness.
Do you think it's a gender thing? I don't know if I've known very many guys that have talked about dating for them being awkward. The majority, most of the men that I've spoken with, they never, dating was for them a means to an end. So it was never about the anxiety and the awkwardness of dating, but it was always just about, man, I'm just taking this girl out so I can, you know, whatever. But like I said, I actually enjoyed the process. But would you say that gender has something to do with it?
I will say I don't necessarily know about the social awkwardness of it. I think that definitely is germane to my personality. But I think one thing that perhaps is unique to gender, and especially just, you know, you're having to think about what you're wearing and how you're gonna put your hair, and you know, so there's just a lot more layers, I think, to the female dating you know, to the woman dating experience. You know, we're thinking about, you know, what to wear, how to have our hair. Are you, you know, because you're
We apologize, everyone. We are back. That was a very small glitch, technical difficulty. Charmaine was talking about some of the challenges from the gender standpoint when it comes to preparing for dating.
Yeah, just preparing for dating. I think it requires a lot more steps for women, and to, you know, and I think we have a lot more things on our checklist leading up to the date, during the date, after the date, that could be a bit, you know, stressful. And then if you're young and you're having to go through your parents and things like that, there's other people involved. So for me, yeah, it was a lot of steps, and it was, yeah, it almost made me not want to date until after I got out of my parents' house.
That's interesting. So dating is an important part of obviously getting to know someone that you may be interested in. And there are three things that you'll definitely want to make sure that you have in consideration when you think about dating. The first is chemistry. We talked about this idea. Chemistry does involve attraction, but it also involves connection. So you can be attracted to someone and like what you see and like the vibe that you're getting, but then that connection is usually tied to those intrinsic things within that individual. So I love, well, I don't love it, but I know that there's a phrase that I hear women say sometimes that, you know, he was perfect till he opened his mouth. I've heard
that one.
Hopefully that's never been the case for me, but yeah, like, child, he was so fine till he opened his mouth. And it's like, wow, I never want that to be said. I want to trend upwards. Where it's like, he look all right. And it's like, the more I talk, the better I look. And so, you know, but this whole idea of chemistry and not only the attraction, but again, some of the intellectual qualities that person may have in common that intrigues us should be an important part of that.
Absolutely. And then safety, right? Safety is big now. And I know I can't even say that it's a gender thing, because to be honest, everyone needs to be safe nowadays. There's a lot happening. We live in a very digital society, and so safety is big. Whether you date and it's face-to-face dating, your, you know, online profile, safety is big, because we are all digital citizens, and we have to ask ourselves, what are those characteristics and components that will keep us safe? We want our information safe if you're dating online. You also want to ask yourself, has this person you know, have I vetted them enough to know that I'm comfortable having that face-to-face interaction with them through dating?
Absolutely. And the last one is enthusiasm, which
Mm-hmm.
Charmaine and I, we actually had a conversation about that, because you want to ideally be excited and look
Yes.
forward to going out on a
Mm-hmm.
date with someone and getting to know them. But we also had a conversation about there are some times where you commit to going on a date with someone and you're not necessarily enthusiastic about it, because they may represent an out of the box experience for you.
That's
They
true.
may be someone that you never dated that type of person before. It may be a blind date that someone has set you up on. So there are some times when it comes to dating where you're not necessarily excited and enthusiastic about it. But part of the reason why we bring it up is because that intuition,
Mm-hmm.
that the idea again of sharing space and time with someone, is this someone that you need to share space and time with? So all of these are really important aspects when we talk about dating and the importance of it, and the idea of getting to know that person and taking it to the next level of having an intentional, intimate setting with them in order to get to know them.
Yeah, I mean, and the enthusiasm. Let's be honest. How many times have you gone out, or you didn't want to go to work, but then when you got to work, it's like, oh my gosh, I feel better today, right? So we can't always be led by our mood, our feelings, our emotions. Those are often temporary conditions in our body that they're not permanent. So again, you might not be encouraged to go out on a date, and then you go out on a date and it's the best date you've ever had. So you don't want to be limited by allowing your feelings to control your actions.
All right, we got our first speak now question number one. Charmaine, you want to share that for us, please?
All right. So it says, what has been some of your worst dating experience? Come on now, y'all. Come on, tell the truth. What has been some of your worst dating experiences? Was it because of what someone said, what was done, environment? What were, maybe it was time for the bill to be paid and somehow the wallet was left home or the purse was left home? Talk to us. What has been some of the worst dating experiences you have, and why? And for the sake of protecting all names, you can you don't have to mention the names of the individual. All right, no throwing shade or calling people out. But what have been some of the worst dating experiences for you, and why?
So that's our speak now question number one. Be sure to put your experiences and comments in the chat. We're going to take a really quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with more Before I Do.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
Welcome back to Before I Do. Tonight we're talking about dating do's and don'ts. Our speak now question number one was, what has been some of your worst dating experiences? And so I will actually share mine.
Okay.
I was younger. This was actually before I started driving, and this was also before cell phones. So this is one of those situations where
young people, this was a
long.
long.
First of all, lower your tone. That's the first thing. So this was during the time where you before you're driving and before cell phones.
You had to whistle for a dinosaur.
When somebody dropped you off and said, "Hey, come back and get me during this at this time," like if they weren't at home, like you were stuck wherever you were. So I went on a date with this one young lady from my church, and we went to go see this movie. But something happened, and like the movie was either sold out or something where we weren't able to actually get in it. And so we ended up like walking across the street and like getting a pizza and like sitting in front of a gas station, like eating this whole piece. Yeah, I'm serious.
Like on the ground?
Like sitting on the ground in front of a gas station, like eating a pizza. And so the good thing is, I mean, we had good conversation, but
so
yeah,
you guys made the best of it.
Yeah, but we didn't go out again. But and I take full responsibility for that.
Wait a minute, you didn't go out again because you didn't ask her to go out again, or she didn't respond?
That's a good question. So I don't think I asked again because I was too ashamed, and I thought that she would say no. But it wasn't a bad date. The reason why we were at the gas station was because that's where the payphones were, and so we went to the gas station to try to call to see if somebody could come and pick us up, and nobody was answering. So we stayed there, kept calling, and so that was my bad date experience.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, I do have a bad date experience.
I'm sure you do.
The one that I led. You remember that? That
yes.
dating experience?
Yeah.
Was that the date? That's the story you want me to tell?
No, you don't have to. You tell another one.
I don't know. I think that was probably. I know I had a bad, blind date situation where this was before catfishing was a thing, but yeah. Again, back before the internet was around, you would just talk on the phone, get to know people or whatever. And so this is like one of my earlier on boyfriend experiences when I could get on the phone and I would talk to this guy, decent conversation, and met face to face. And the image that he mailed me, because you had to put a image, if you didn't go to school with the person, they had to send you, something and put it in the mail. And so the image that the guy sent me was not his image. And so then when I finally met, it just was like, okay, this is not the picture that was sent. And so it was not a good experience.
Yeah, so that was pre-catfishing. Young people, that was a long time ago, before the whole term catfishing. So yeah,
you don't have to say long. You're older than me.
This was back in the day when it was called "you shot somebody a dream." That was we couldn't say lie growing up, so you had to say shoot somebody a dream.
You couldn't say lie either.
But again, tonight we're talking about dating do's and don'ts, and so a lot of different things that we are going to share are a part of things that you will want to consider when you're thinking about dating someone, and just to have in mind. So number one, do make sure that you are ready to date.
Mentally,
so this
physically,
is mentally, physically, spiritually, making sure that you are in a good head space in order, again, to entertain someone. As we continue to reiterate, this is a person that is going to be within your physical space, within your mental space. So ask yourself, are you ready to allow that type of intrusion? Because again, it may be pleasurable, it may not, but you want to make sure that you are in a good space to make sure that you're ready to date.
And I know that some people say, well, how will I know? How do I know that I'm ready to date? When you have the mental, physical, emotional capacity, right, to literally get to know, you're committed every day to getting to know this person. So if you don't have the energy, right, to study somebody, to get to know them or whatever, then the question is, are you ready? Because this is about you getting to know them and putting in that work, not just them, but the don'ts. All right. And the don'ts of this aspect is intimately engaging others while you are conflicted or wounded. Absolutely. If you are still hurt.
Yes.
If you are still hurt, I mean, the sound of that person's name, you hear a song on the radio. I mean, there are just so many indicators and triggers that will really stir up those conflicts, those wounds and things like that. Then, you know what, give yourself some time to heal, because again, you don't want to be on that first date. And the first date is all conversation about how you were traumatized in the past relationship.
And oftentimes what happens in those situations is a person, they think that they're ready, and then they end up on a date and all they're talking about is the trauma from their past relationship.
Absolutely.
And so while it may be therapeutic for you, it is really awkward and it's very uncomfortable for your date and for that person.
Absolutely.
So make sure that you're in a position where, again, you're not still wounded and or even conflicted and not gotten over that other person before you engage on going on the date. All right. Now, do trust but verify.
Mhm.
We know that online dating and meeting individuals through various digital portals has become a really popular tool and instrument,
Mhm.
and there is nothing wrong with that. But you want to make sure that you are vetting everyone that you meet. Charmaine talked about her pre-catfish experience. And so this is something that has been going on for a very long time. But you want to do the best that you can to verify the information that you're being told, to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to find out exactly who this person is, the activities and the things that they're involved in, and trying to get them know them as best as you can. And we recommend that you do that before you even go out on a date. There was a time where at the very beginning, you went from meeting somebody to and going on a date in order to get to know them. But now in this present age, it allows you the chance to really get to know people before you even go out on a date, to know if there's somebody that you even would date. So trust but verify.
Absolutely. And don't assume that what you're shown is all there. And I like this one because, again, assuming. We know when we assume, again, that means you don't have evidence. You don't, you're just really making an assumption based on either an emotion, an isolated experience, right? And so, again, we often meet their representative. They show up on the first date. We're meeting the representative. And you need to ask yourself, what happens? And have you ever shown up at with your representative and literally you so photoshopped, you so this, you so that, you don't look nothing like your real self. Your character isn't revealed yet. And so that's the one thing I would say we need to get back to. Again, don't assume. Again, take time so that, again, you don't have to even deal with a representative. What's wrong with going back to like talking to people and having several conversations?
That's right.
People say, oh, well, I'm a Christian. Okay, anybody can, the old folks say, you can make your mouth say anything.
Yep.
So just because someone is a Christian, quote unquote, that doesn't mean that their morals, values, how they carry themselves, whether they're in a real relationship spiritually and you guys are going to be yoked up, it doesn't mean that you're going to exactly align.
Absolutely. So Natalie actually has a question. She says, where do we verify from? So in other words, how do we go about verifying? And Charmaine just actually mentioned it. And so a lot of it, to be perfectly honest, is listening. It's listening to the individual. And as you hear from them, they'll share some things with you that will, well, I go to this church, or I frequent this place, or I know this person. Sometimes you'll have individuals who you'll have in common that that know them as well. So asking some of those individuals about that person, whatever means that you have just to verify as far as what it is that they're telling you, that they're operating in truth, is going to help you in the evaluation process. And you'll notice that as we go through this, it sounds a lot like a job interview. And I know that people don't want to see it that way, but really that's what dating is. It's getting to know that person and to see if they're going to be a good fit for your life. And your job, they have references. Your job wants to verify that the things on your resume are true. And so it's the same thing with us when we're dating, when we're screening people, making sure that we're doing our part to not just take what we hear and see at face value, but that we're delving into it.
Yeah. And before you even check the references, what are your qualifiers?
Yes.
So that's one thing that we definitely love to help people ask. What are your qualifiers? We used to ask our daughter when she was younger and was struggling with attracting, like, really, so she was, that nice friend, and she would always attract selfish people. And so I would say, you know what, if these people had to apply, they have to fill out an application for friendship for you to be your friend, what would be on your application? So it's the same thing with dating. What would you put on an application if somebody literally wanted to fill out an application to date you? Now, we are not saying create your own application, okay? Because somebody
out there right now just done went to Google and went to Google Forms right now, and they already own it.
But yeah, definitely make sure you keep you have your expectations and utilize those as qualifiers.
And this goes right into our next do. So do remember your standards and be prepared to communicate them. It's very hard to hold people to standards that you are not aware of. And so understanding who you are, what are some of the things that are deal breakers and that are important to you, when it comes to dating, when it comes to getting to know someone, and then being able to communicate those things to the other person. Oftentimes, we have this long list of expectations for others, which is one of the shows we actually did before, but we're not necessarily effectively communicating those things. And so it's very important to not only remember your standards, but also could be able to communicate them to the individual that you're interested in.
And you know what? Being diverse in that, we do a lot of verbal communication. And especially sometimes as women, it says that we often use 20,000 words a day, and men typically only need 10,000 words a day. And so with that being said, sometimes we verbally communicate a lot. And sometimes we need to lean more into what are people showing you? Especially men. Men are big in action, right? Again, a guy can make his mouth say anything, but his actions. Watch what he does.
Absolutely.
Watch how he engages his friends and the people close to him. And again, how he values them and how he treats them and shows them. If it's not in alignment with things you're seeing with you, then that can be a challenge. The don't for this part. So do remember to have your standards, but don't compromise or don't compromise your standards for convenience. Yours or theirs, right? And so there's room for everybody to respect each other's standards and just really understand that compromise, that's one of the biggest stories ever told in relationships. Well, you just have to compromise. No. No. All right. And so your standards are your standards.
Yeah. So the great philosopher, Mary J. Blige, once said in her song, Be Happy, she says, sometimes when you think you're in love, you want to see what you want to see. And so because a person looks a certain way, then sometimes we will adjust and compromise our standards in order for us to stay with that person, because they again have something that we may want or look away a certain look, but we know that if we're really holding to our values, then that person they are not it. They are not the one, and we need to actually move on. So it's very important that we not compromise, compromise for their convenience, but also for our convenience as well. All right, the next one, do be mindful of any inconsistencies. So when you talk about this whole idea of catfishing, there will be, and as Charmaine mentioned, individuals will send their representatives. So everyone's going to put their best foot forward. Everybody's going to put their best face on.
And that's okay.
And that absolutely. But again, with the conversations, with the things that you're hearing, listen for things that, okay, this person said this, but they actually said this. Why aren't they available on this particular day and time? What is it that they say they have this going on, but then, they said they got this going on. And so there's some inconsistencies there. And so this is just to monitor this particular person, because if a person shows up in one way in one area, more than likely that is a part of a character trait where they actually will show up that way in other areas. And so it's important for us to be mindful of those inconsistencies.
Yeah, and don't ignore discrepancies or untruths. I mean, sometimes you have to deal with things head on. And so if there's an untruth or discrepancy or something that you notice, you want to make sure you address it. Don't kind of sweep it under the rug. It says, you know what, I noticed you said this, but it seems like this is what's really occurring. Tell me a little bit more about that. Or I'm one of those people that I'm like, okay, your actions mean more to me than what you say.
Right.
So I may not even bring it up until I've kind of observed a little bit more. And then by the time I bring it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'm weighing how you respond to me bringing it up with evidence I already have. So just sometimes take your time and ask yourself, is it better to be more verbal and to kind of speak, or is it better to watch this individual?
Yeah, and a lot of it is for your information, again, for your safety, not just your physical safety, but also your emotional safety as well. So this is not you said last week, this is not for that, but this is you being mindful and watchful of who it is that you're dealing with. So very important. And so getting into our Speak Now question number 2, which is, we talked about some of your worst date experience. Now we want to hear about some of your best dating experiences.
Best
What are some of the
dates
best
ever.
dating experiences that you have had? We are going to take another brief commercial break, and we will be right back with part 2 of the do's and don'ts for Before I Do.
Welcome back. You are tuned in to Before I Do, where our topic tonight is dating do's and don'ts.
Absolutely. So we have a comment from Natalie. I can pull it up. Natalie says, I didn't do a lot of dating before I married 29 years ago. I am recently divorced and I'm now dating myself and doing things I like to do. Can we ring the bell for that?
Oh, no, I got to ring the bell a lot louder. You better say that again, Natalie.
Natalie says she is dating herself and doing things she likes to do. She says, when I'm ready to date again, this platform is bringing up some good stuff to think about.
Okay, Natalie. So, yes, Queen, that is how it is to be done.
Absolutely.
You give yourself time and space to heal and love, reintroduce yourself to dating yourself, right? And so, again, how can we expect someone if you find yourself, Natalie, in the future, I'll be ready to go into a relationship, you would have already had the experience to understand yourself, to know what you like, because you know how to love yourself and love on yourself, right? And so being able to model that for somebody else and not waiting for someone to come in to onboard and to get to know them. Now you can onboard somebody, right? You know what you like. You're not trying to figure out what you like in the process of trying to figure out somebody else. So that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And we encourage you in that. So we're talking about the do's and don'ts of dating. So we're going to get into a few more.
All right. So do let someone know where you are going and who is going with you. I cannot stress this enough in this safety precaution. I know with my friends and I, we definitely would have a code. If you went out on a date or something, like, you need to text. First of all, your friends who have your back, you let them know. Well, nowadays we have more sophisticated technology, but back in the day, we would let somebody know in advance where we were going on the date, what time we were going to be there, who this person is. In the event that something happens, your family or your close friends will know where you are, who you're with, and just for, checks and balances. Now we have such great technology that can GPS, locate you, identify you in real time. We have to use these for safety precautions.
Absolutely. So you do want to make sure that someone knows where you're going and who you're going with, and then don't disregard your village / your support system, your family, your friends, your close circle. If there's someone that you are dating and that you're interested in, it is absolutely important for them to meet that person and that individual. There are certain things that they may see in that person that you may not necessarily see because of how close you are and your feeling and connection with them. What I like to say is a good support system is an alarm system. So, and you would not leave your house without setting your alarm. You would not leave your car without setting your alarm. So it's the same thing, that as you get into a deeper relationship, as you start to date someone, when the time is right and appropriate, you want to pull your village in as your support system to make sure that they are able to put eyes on them as well.
All right, the next do we have, do meet in public places, at least in the initial phases of dating. You want to make sure that there's accountability. And I do know that there's some individuals who they don't like people in their business. They like the idea of that privacy. But again, you want to make sure that there's accountability. So if you're not big on public places, even though we encourage the public places because maybe you're a very private person, then make sure you keep those other safeguards.
Absolutely. And you don't want to meet in your date's home. We live in a state here in Florida where, again, when it comes to trafficking and, sexual trafficking and things of that nature, that is a real challenge and a real issue.
Yes.
And so you want to make sure that you really get to know someone before you allow yourself to be inside of their home and their confines. And so you could be potentially putting yourself in a dangerous situation. So again, this is part of that safety, but it also too, it gives you all something to look forward to. Of course, when it comes to understanding a person's culture, seeing how they live is an important part of dating. It really helps to allude to and give us clues on, again, some of the things that we're seeing from them from a behavioral standpoint. So, but don't rush that process. Don't rush the process of being quick to go to someone's home until you've really gotten to know who they are.
Or letting them come to your house.
Absolutely, of course.
You definitely can't come to my house. So, so we want to just take our time. Dating is a process. Take your time to get it right, and getting it right really is germane to you and that individual, but definitely taking it slow with making sure that person and you are deeply connected. Do have funds to cover your own expenses. Now, okay, you ringing the bell on that one.
I rung the bell on that.
You ringing the bell on that one.
I'm just saying.
Okay, so do have funds to cover your own expenses, because what if it gets down to pay that check or that bill, and you know what? The wallet was left at home or the purse was left at home accidentally.
I know people. I'm not saying, I'm just saying that I know people who will go out on a date, and if the date isn't going the way that they think it is going to go, or end up the way that they think it's going to end up, they intended to pay, but will pull that offer from the table. So that's just a little
that
insight.
Is horrible.
So I'm saying that you do want to make sure that you have your own expenses, and part of the reason why is because you don't want to completely depend on your date financially. As Charmaine was saying, anything could happen. In the situation I mentioned, that is true, but oftentimes too, what if that person card declines because they had an automatic payment that was taken out they had forgotten about? So sometimes there are innocent things that can and do happen. And so both individuals, again, because this is not gender specific, this is both individuals making sure that you are prepared to financially cover the obligations of the date, so nobody's stuck out there.
And I will admit, one time I overheard a conversation with just with a bunch of women talking about I just went out on a date because I wanted to go out to a nice dinner, and I'm like you went out on a date with a guy just to get a dinner when you had no interest in the person at all. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, come on now, we need to operate in integrity. Like, why would you go out in the person's company knowing you really don't like them, you're not really vibing them, you're just really going out for the dinner? Like, I've heard that before. Have you?
Absolutely.
That's
I've definitely heard that before, and might have been one of those victims. But that's okay though, because one of the things that I always felt like is that when I take you out, I'm eating too. So that's part of the reason you don't have to worry about me taking you someplace that you're not going to enjoy, because I am a part of the dating experience as well. Aww. Hey, thank y'all so much for tuning in to Before I Do tonight. We talked about dating do's and don'ts. We really hope that you all got a lot out of the experience. Don't forget, we are your Couples Academy practitioners. Yes. Please be sure to book us for a session. We offer both individual and couples counseling, and as we mentioned, we do offer premarital counseling as well. All right, so thank y'all for tuning in to Before I Do. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and download the Couples Academy app. We will see you all same time next week right here on Couples Academy Before I Do.
When 45 men from all walks of life come together in one place for one purpose, there is a collective harmony that produces an amplification of power that leaves an impact on the lives of men that cannot be erased. A fraternity of legendary men, all at the tipping point, on the precipice of greatness, meeting for one weekend to turn their worlds inside out. For the first time ever, the Foundry experience. Not an event, not a seminar or retreat, but an opportunity to come face to face with the man you were always destined to be. If you want a life that's better than the one that you are living, meet us January 2023 for the Foundry experience.